Well, oh yeah, okay, all right. So what else has happened? Tool has continued the tour.
I mean, outside of Tool news.
Oh, okay. We're talking about non-Tool stuff now.
Well, I mean, I know it's a Tool podcast, but
Yeah, this podcast has become so many things.
Yeah.
Tool, food. What else? Pretty much Tool and food.
Twin Peaks,
Twin Peaks, cartoons,
Wayne, Mr. Bungle, Fugazi,
Mr. Bungle,
Ninja Turtles,
Fugazi, and Adventures of Pete and Pete.
Oh yeah, Pete and Pete. Different kinds of filters for your synthesizer.
Oh, and
that's
ice.
a big deal. Yeah, ices.
Cookies.
Yeah, and cookies.
Bubbly.
Oh man. Oh yeah, sparkling water. We do talk about that a lot.
Coffee and milk Sprite.
All kinds of drinks. Yeah.
Yep.
And you know what's interesting?
What's that?
All that has occurred since the first episode of this podcast, which featured Alex Crist.
Yes, Alex Crist. When I first met him and I saw his name spelled out, I actually did think it was Alex Christ.
Yeah.
And I think I might have actually called him Mr. Christ unironically. Wow. And then he laughed and because I don't think he realized that I didn't know. And then I found out that it was Crist. I wonder if I ever told him that.
I don't know. You'll have your chance now because he's back with us today.
Speaking of which, welcome to Accelerativ Thrust. I am Dan.
And I'm Erik.
And today, as we mentioned, yes, Alex Crist. For those of you who don't know Alex Crist, I almost feel like he needs not much of an introduction, but he is the guitar player of Closet Witch. Which, by the way, Erik, I wanted to let you know that the hiatus can now be talked about.
Oh, yeah, I wondered. Yeah.
Yep, because there's some big news that was revealed on Facebook in the Closet Witch camp that turns out was the reason for the hiatus. And so now Alex is fine with talking about it.
All right. Well, let's let him do the honors.
Is he on right now?
No, he's waiting. He's been waiting. He was here before you.
Okay, well that's well that explains so much. That says so much about us. Podcast hosts.
But we probably should let him in. He's probably getting pretty pissed off.
Yeah, let's do it. All right. Well, I did say 10 o'clock though, so.
Well, he's ready. He's prompt.
Right. Well, if he's ready and he's prompt, then let's do it.
Oh gosh, this is my favorite part of the podcast. He's coming on. He's connecting to the audio.
Yep.
We'll just leave all that in.
Oh, and he's arrived.
Oh, there he is. He's muted.
Alex Crist. Yes. Are you hearing all this, Alex?
I'm hearing it, but are you hearing me?
Now I am. Yes.
Yep.
Perfect.
There's 4 people that are making music right now, and they're called Closet Witch. And well, actually, I guess you could say they're not really making music right now.
I didn't want to correct you, but I was like, I'm just gonna let you do your thing.
It is okay to talk about the hiatus, correct, Alex?
Yeah.
In the past, this information has been suppressed, but now it can be told.
News came out yesterday, and Molly and Corey are having a baby. So we're going to take some time off. Yeah, I know. It's incredible news.
Did they use alchemy?
I hope so. Somebody wrote baby alchemy on there. I'm like, I've known for months, and I never made that connection. It's hilarious. Like, I love that comment.
They could name the baby alchemy. That'd be cute.
Oh, that would be so great.
That would be adorable. I haven't asked. I didn't want to pry. I think I'm just going to personally wait until the.
And you know what? Their middle. Actually, what if they named it Baby, and then the middle name is Noir, and then the last name is Alchemy. Baby Noir Alchemy.
I love that.
Actually, Noir is a really cute name too.
It is. Yeah.
Write those down, guys, on your baby name list.
I'm emailing them right now.
Baby
it's
Noir.
A shared document.
Erik came up with this.
Get me in on that shared document.
Also,
baby names.
Also, I think it should also be mention that on top of them having a baby, they're also engaged now.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that is awesome.
Nice.
The Peak family is going to be expanding in the awesomest of ways.
Agreed. It's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
So it is funny though. I mean, to talk about the hiatus a little bit. I mean, I want to talk about babies too, but it seems like it came right basically when the new record came out, right?
It was,
or was it before even that you knew
so
that was going to happen?
it was before, and now that we can actually talk about the timeline, what had happened was wasn't very public about it, but I was in and out of the hospital again at the beginning of summer. And so I had to cancel a good chunk of shows, and we were going to do In Loving Memory came back, and we're doing this like giant 2-day thing in Des Moines.
Right.
And I couldn't do it. And even that week, Molly was having a lot of, I want to use the word like, it was a difficult pregnancy at the beginning for her. So she was really sick, didn't know what was going on, and like couldn't perform herself. And so I think there was like a murky area of like, we didn't know what was going on. So that was around like August, I want to say. And then we had one more show booked that we were going to play with Soul Glow. And it was like a last minute thing.
Yeah.
I was feeling a lot better and I was kind of ready to do it. We loaded up the van, and then the next morning I couldn't do it again. It was like I hit a reset button. So I had to go back to the hospital. And that's when that happened, it was kind of like Molly and I kind of came to like, I can't do it. She can't do it. Let's just, take a pause. And we were going to we had a tour booked with Blind Equation. They were dropping their album. We were dropping our album. We were going to do a weekend run. And then that's where I was at 100% again, ready to go. But Molly wasn't feeling comfortable to do it. And so we all got together and we're like, there's one person we'd asked to fill in. They declined. And when they declined, then we were like, okay, then the best thing to do is just take a break, so.
Yeah. It's unfortunate that you had to cancel so many shows, but at the same time, I'm glad to see that you guys are recuperating. Your health is wealth. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Much more important than, playing shows. You know what I mean? Like,
I agreed. They were really, really cool opportunities, but at the same time, like, I think it would have backtracked me personally. And like, that's me just like knowing only what I was going through at the time. So I think it was for the best.
Right. Yeah. You could have ended up in the hospital for much longer.
Exactly.
Had you, and same with Molly too.
Exactly. But her situation was much more important to be like, you need rest.
Right.
And like, the sickness was hitting her really hard at the beginning for sure. So I know she just needed downtime.
And if I know Molly being the strong person she is, man, she doesn't,
take no for an answer.
Yeah, she doesn't like to rest.
It is
she's
true.
very much a strong, like, I've seen her play shows when she like obviously was not feeling well, and it was like, are you sure you're wanting to play? Like,
the last tour we did, I bashed her face and like smashed her eye open, and she did the
I saw that
eye all fucked up.
Wow.
So
it's amazing. That's the only big injury that I've heard about, honestly. Seeing you guys play, it's pretty unhinged sometimes, and not just you, but the audience as well.
I dislocated my knee really bad during a show in Iowa City and had to put it back into place during the show. And I'm pretty sure I did some damage on that guy. It's never been the same since. That's why, like, you don't see me move. I'm a big guy anyway, but like, you don't see me moving much anymore because I learned my lesson. I went down like a box of bricks, and it hurt.
Just turn your back to the audience, play the show,
exactly.
Get the hell out.
Exactly.
Age will change the way you move
my
around.
God, for real. For real.
No doubt about it. I just wanted to actually get into, while we were sort of talking about chiaroscuro. Am I saying that correctly?
Chiaroscuro. It took me like 3 years to learn how to say it. Don't worry. So, and when we were pitching the name, I was like, I can't name an album that if I can't say it. And oh man, it's been a journey.
And I probably would still like not say it right.
Yeah,
always,
I'm going to say right now that I'm not 100% sure if I'm saying it correctly. So
yeah.
there's somebody out there on the fact check us.
Yep,
Oh, yeah.
fact checkers. Yep, someone. Yep, but
I'll edit the proper pronunciation in.
Chiaroscuro.
oh yeah. So I just want to say, first of all, amazing album. Your first album was amazing as well, but I actually think, in my opinion, that I mean everything you did on the first album, you kind of took it up a notch, in my opinion, with this record. So first of all, it was like recorded way back in like 2019, right? Or am I getting that timeline wrong?
So it was written in 2019, a good chunk of it, but I definitely wrote some of it during COVID.
Oh, okay.
Because there was a thing, there's a community online called Mathcore Index.
Mm-hmm.
And when COVID started, there was a bunch of guys doing this thing called Friday Night Riff Fights. And you just posted a video of the riff you were working on that day. It wasn't like, there wasn't a battle of like who was the best riff. It was just like a bunch of people just like getting together and showing off their writing and getting critiques and whatnot. And my only contribution to that ended up being My Words is Sacred. So that definitely was like written in and recorded during COVID. But the big delay on all that was mainly at first COVID, because once everybody got shut down, well, you probably know the story. Everybody gets shut down on touring.
Right.
And then everyone's idea was like, well, I'm going to go record a record.
Yeah.
And so it became really hard to just even get into Flat Black and just finish it. And then I had my own complications. So it was just like, yeah, the album was done. Well, it wasn't really finished because my last round of chemo, that following week, I traveled out to Luke's, and that's when I finished it. So it got finished like August of 2022. So it was probably like that journey of like 20. If I'm correct, it was written and recorded between 2019 and then finally finished at the end of almost the end of 22. If I have my timeline correct.
Okay, gotcha. And so one of the things that I think makes this record so great, there's a certain atmosphere to it that really is almost like the sound of the guitars sound almost like a shoegaze record or something like that at times.
Oh, interesting.
Where it just really, to me, it like hypnotizes me almost.
Cool.
Like and so I was wondering if there was any like certain approach that may have been different to this record that you took that wasn't necessarily taken with like the first record that may have resulted in that.
Yeah, if you want to get real technical, there was a huge step as far as gear. That record in particular, so the first self-titled, if you want to get really technical, those were all active EMG pickups. And then for the Chiaroscuro, half of it is done with EMG, and the other half, and the primary half of all the guitar is a P90. And another big thing, and I guess like if you want to get really technical, the EMG guitar ran with 56 gauges on top, a nice really thick guitar string, and then the P90 was running with 42s on top. So it really added this like very interesting sound where I guess I haven't heard a lot of other guitar players do that. It was an experiment. I don't know if I'd necessarily go back and do it again, but it was like in the heat of the moment, I wanted two different guitar sounds without changing out my amp and my like settings on my pedal board. So that's how I approached at least just the guitars, because I thought the pickups and string gauge alone added that extra twang, which a lot of people were like referring it to as fuzz. And I think it's the P90 is what you're really hearing there.
Sure.
And then the other technical thing that a lot of guitar players are driven up a wall when they see my pedal board. And this is where I think it comes to what you described as shoegazy. A lot of folks are very adamant about putting distortion last, and any effects as far as delay, reverb, octave needs to be before. I do the opposite. And that really, I get a lot of mean looks for doing it, but I think the overall what you're describing as shoegaze, that washy, that like very like drone out noise is the distortion going into those sounds and then reamped again through the amplifier. And then I guess like on top of that, I was running tons of octaves and multiple distortions from the pedal board and the amp head. Once again, I since getting back, I don't really run it like this anymore, but I do believe that contributed to that sound. And it's kind of wild. Like I found this forum yesterday that like a whole forum of people discussing the riffs and the sound. And it's just so bizarre, like hearing what other people thought about it and like how you described it as like how a few other people have too. And I guess like even I didn't make that connection of like, I really think it's how the pedal board's set up and just like, I don't know. I really just turn it up. Just like go to town.
But now all that's been replaced by a single vexed brain closet witch pedal, right?
So that is my the Sphinx Moth is my like I like to call it my Swiss Army knife. So what happened was when I got back, we did about a year and a half before taking the latest break, and pretty much all those shows we got to a point where it's like you didn't get to use your cabs, you didn't get to use your heads.
Right.
It's like you show up with a guitar and your pedal board. And I was running into a ton of issues where, like how I just described, I was running tons of distortions plus the amp distortion. So if you take that away, that's 50% of your sound gone. And I'm now noticing like that's where these Helix guys are stepping in with these amp sims and whatnot, and they're running everything from their boards because they're getting put in these situations where you can't use your own amp. So I had to backtrack, and so I jumped on the HM2 train. I do like that chainsaw vibe, but the Sphinx Moth is like the Swiss Army that kind of just like really gets a standard head to this like kind of a brighter tube level. I don't know if you saw the teaser, but it shows you the overdrive in it, and that like that alone will get almost any head to like a playable level for like what we're doing personally. So yeah, that's what I'm doing now. I basically stopped using tube amps. I'm no longer using my Mesa. So
yeah, they're heavy.
Yeah, they're stupid. Well, actually, I'm just gonna say this now. I've replaced them with like 1978 PV solid state heads, which are probably like two times the weight there alone. So yeah, they're built like tanks, and you can find them almost anywhere if one breaks. So it sounds great. Yeah.
We use those in Los Voltage and exclusively, but we always referred to them as heavies because they were so heavy. Like the cabs, seriously, they're like 600 pounds, and it's just oh my god. Anyway.
I have so much PV gear that I've collected over the years that I've like never shown, and like just like I got to rewire everything. But I'm amped for the day of like getting to rehouse all those, because I got like the 218, 210, and then I got a 612 that I need to get loaded up, and I really want to bring that 612 out. That would be so sick.
The thing is that the reason they rule and the reason people still use them is, I think, in my opinion, they don't color your sound at all. It's just pure loudness.
Exactly.
You know? And that's great for feeding pedals into,
exactly,
because your sound is your sound. And and like you're saying, if you have to plug into a different head, all of them are going to have at least a similar like solid state, clean, loud sound,
as long as you can get that general flat response, that's where like I'm not trying to plug my pedal, but that's where it's just like you get a flat response, add that Sphinx to it, and now you have that bright tube drive, and now just layer your distortion on, you're good to go. And it's just it works. And I mean, that's what a lot of people are doing these days. And not to mention the tube crisis of like COVID, like trying to find tubes today is fucking insane. So it's just like, okay, like it's just a sign. Like mine's retired now. It's permanently mic'd up in my like little studio room and ready to go whenever. But yeah, I don't think it's going to see the road anymore. It's just easier.
Yeah, for sure. I was going to ask a little bit more about gear since we're already there. This is going to be such a lame question. You're left-handed or play left-handed. Is it difficult to find gear? Like if you broke your
Dude, you have no fucking
ESP,
idea.
like what would you do? You know?
Knock on wood, thank God it's never happened.
Mhm.
Typically I have a backup guitar with me. Not
Mhm.
all the time. Sometimes I get cocky and just hope for the best, but the harsh truth is if it really broke,
Yeah.
you probably just wouldn't hear guitar that night. I mean,
Yeah,
I would,
right.
if it were the heat of the moment and we're mid set, and if you've seen us before, we don't stop. So
Right.
the other three are just going to keep going.
Mhm.
And if it's broken and unplayable, I'd probably just leave everything on and just do like a noise feedback over
Yeah.
everything and just say, fuck it.
Nice.
That's probably literally what I do. And then cry afterwards because we're
Yeah.
on the road and I don't have a guitar. I've never gone into a music shop
Mhm.
and got to play the guitar I was going to buy.
Right.
It's always rolling the dice. Well, it used to be. I got really lucky. I haven't revealed my source. There's a guy about 45 minutes outside of town
Mhm.
who worked at a casino, got paid a bunch of money, is left-handed, and was like, I'm just gonna buy guitars and get really good at guitar.
Oh yeah.
He bought hundreds of guitars, but
Okay.
just never learned how to play. And
Wow.
now he went to a local shop, was like, I got all these guitars, I just want to sell them all at once. They gave him this like ridiculous lowball offer, like
Mhm.
insulting.
Right.
And then I found him on Facebook Marketplace because he was like, I'm only parting with these two. And
Mm.
that was like 4 or 5 years ago. And we
Yeah.
have just like, now we're just tight. And I get to go over there whenever I'm like ready to find a new guitar. And
Oh
like
wow.
the last thing I bought, I was a huge naysayer of Schecter, but I
Mm.
got the Sean Morgan. It's the dude from Cedar's like signature guitar.
Mhm.
It's one of the best guitars I've ever played. And he just gave it to me for like with the case for like $300. This is like a $1,500 guitar. It's just like I
Yeah.
think he wants people who are really gonna play the instrument and
Wow.
take it. So it's the first time that I bought my last 4 guitars from this guy.
That's
And so
sweet.
that's and
Wow.
I've been playing for like 20 years, and that's the only experience where like he's got amps set up and I actually
Mhm.
get to play them beforehand. And like, yeah, he has a
Wow.
bunch more that I'm gonna go. And there's one other kid that I know of who's left-handed near
Mhm.
me. And
Mhm.
once I have my fill, I will pass on that info to Chris and let him know, like, hey,
Yeah.
there's some really good stuff here. But
So if
I'm
you're
getting
listening, Chris,
yeah.
someone's holding out on you.
Just a little bit longer. I think there's like 2 more in particular that I'm like I've always wanted a Telecaster.
Oh
And
yeah.
he has 3 that from different brands that I would really I think
Wow.
I'm gonna probably grab them all. I don't
That's
need
awesome.
3, but I want 3. Fuck it.
Hey,
Yeah.
I mean, when are you going to have that opportunity again?
Exactly. So I've been kind of just eating it up, and he's super chill. Like, just lets me come over whenever he just wants to. Like, I don't know, just a cool guy.
Yeah.
And we've been friends for years, so he's like followed Closet Witch and knows his stuff's in good hands. You know, like
Yeah.
I'm not gonna sell it. It's gonna be
Right.
with me till I'm dead.
Oh,
So like
that's
it'll be in
crazy.
good hands.
Yeah, I guess I have one more question about gear.
Okay.
You guys are energetic on stage,
Oh
and a
geez.
lot of times the set seems to end with at least the drums being destroyed. I noticed that Corey almost uses his bass as like a cane sometimes or something. Like he'll point the head down onto the floor and just kind of rest on it. And okay, so and the drums get broken every night. So how does that work the next night on tour? Like, do you have to repair the stuff like every day? Is that just part of the deal?
I mean, it's I try not to ever look at Corey when we're playing because that
Yeah.
stresses me the fuck out. Drums, he'll know what he breaks. I mean, he breaks a lot of shit.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, I mean, we all have some serious tech issues.
Mhm.
We get really lucky where most of the time we're with friends. So if something it's never been really extreme. We've had to borrow like cabs before
Mhm.
where like even on our end we fucked up and blew a cab.
Mhm.
And so it's just like that kind of thing. But as far as like I've never, knock on wood, like Corey's never, oh my God, snapped his like bass neck.
Yeah.
Like that would be, but it wouldn't fucking shock me if he did. Like
No, not at all.
but like then I think those two are a little carefree in that department because there is so many options of like, I know if
Sure.
Corey borrows somebody's base, he's not going to do the same thing.
Right.
So
Yeah.
like people know their stuff's in good hands. But yeah, I think it's just been kind of luck. Corey's setup is a little stressful for me personally, but it works for him. And I've gotten really lucky to know, like, have my pedal board like basically under my cab, like get it
Right.
as close to the cab as possible. I mean, when we're playing on the floor, it's like you're using your body as a human shield for the pedals laying on the floor of a mosh pit. And I mean, it's just, it is what it is. I've gotten really lucky that I haven't had much broken. I had a DD7 completely obliterated once, but I mean, it comes with the turf. The craziest thing ever, probably gear wise, getting into a wild situation was we did the Condor and Jaybird versus
I know this incident.
Flower.
I was standing right next to you when it happened.
So this kid gets really high and falls asleep on these steps.
Okay.
And it's me and Travis Scudder. Okay, so let me actually paint the scenario. So we're at the Village Theater, and there's this huge stage. They're doing a battle set. And I mean, this place is packed side to side. I don't know if I've ever seen a show bigger than this one.
Yeah, it was huge.
Off to the side, they decided the best. So we were going to secretly crash the show. So after they did a Beatles cover, as soon as it was done, we kicked off a really short 5-song set with another side stage that was covered with a curtain off to the left, but it was in the pit. And so the first thing that happened was this kid falls asleep. Travis plays in well, now he plays in so many different bands. Travis Scudder, man, what like Harsh Times was one of his bands. He's been and Harsh Times was playing that show.
Yep.
And he kind of even gave me a look of like, you want me to get this kid out of there? And I was like, he's asleep. He's not bothering anybody. It's fine. Well, they like kicked up the show and that spooked this kid, and like a wild horse, he just like, I mean, he was just panicked. At the time I was livid, but now understanding, like, I don't know what I'd do either. So I get it. But his first reaction was to just run straight. And he ran through Royce's drum kit about 15 minutes before it's about to start. So his whole hi-hat stand where like the hi-hats actually sit got like snapped where that like bar goes through the middle. I'm not a drum guy, so I couldn't tell you. But that made me livid right there. So we had to get that kid out of there, figure out the drum set. That's where Travis stepped in. He's fixing the drum set. Royce isn't even at the show yet. I think he's still like trying to get there. It was very stressful. So in this commotion, though, the curtain gets pulled back a little bit, and a kid notices this giant 812 and decides, I'm going to drag this into the pit to try and like, I don't know if his idea was to try and like get it to like surf or like to get on top of it and jump off. But that was a battle of its own, trying to communicate to this kid that like, this isn't something for you to fucking jump off of, dude. I need, this is like set up, ready to go. That was probably the most wild thing. And then like one time we were on tour with Cloud Rat and like the whole PA got knocked over and like smashed all this electrical equipment that was like behind everything. But I mean, you know, that it happens with DIY shows.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's some gear stories for you.
You definitely, as Closet Witch, I'm sure have a lot of great stories from, you know, being on the road so much and everything.
We've been a pretty chill band. Like there's not a lot of drama, which was amazing. I mean, we've been doing it for 10 years, so we're kind of chill with each other. The craziest thing ever was probably going to jail, but other than that. So we got invited to do Northwest Terror Fest out in Seattle. And so we toured out there. It was like a big with like Pig Destroyer and a bunch of other really sick bands. and we were on our way back, and we were cutting through South Dakota, and like we were going 5 over, and this cop got us for the weed. And we spent like 2 or 3 days in jail, like on the road, trying to get that figured out. And then, long story short, they basically legalized while all that was going on, and everything got dropped. So it all worked out in the end, but it was very, very stressful. That was probably like the most like, and it was really chaotic because they like split everybody up, so we didn't know what we were doing. And yeah, so we're trying to communicate,
and they were like Corey said that
no, you don't even know that. It was more like
turning you against each other.
If you dude, that would be amazing. No, thank God that didn't happen.
Your friends are selling you out, bro.
Where's all the weed, dude?
It's in all the battery compartments of my pedals, okay?
But the best part was it was like 115 out, and all these fucking cops had to unload the van. They were trying to unload all the cabs. And it's just like, you guys aren't going to figure out how to put it back in. And they just like stopped halfway once they noticed, like, because all the bigger cabs are all the way in the back. So as soon as they got like all the drum stuff out, and they're like, all this is just giant stuff, fuck that. And then they couldn't close the van door, so they just towed it like that. And it was just so stressful. But I mean, that's what you get for being bad. We were bad.
So I have a 2-parter question here, Alex.
Oh boy.
Part 1. So how did you get into the sugar cubes?
I love Bjork. Her voice is next level. But the sugar cubes were a huge part of I think the first thing I discovered was like this little mini doc got released online. And it was just kind of like, this is Bjork at like 15. And like, to be honest, like I kind of like her in an indie rock band. And like, I really liked that first album quite a bit. I've tried to get into the other ones. It doesn't hit for me as much as that one was. But the Sugar Cubes and the other thing that got really big at the time, I haven't watched it, but that Kate Bush song got really big because of Stranger Things again.
Oh, yeah.
Sure. And that album, though, and I mean, that song's incredible, but like that album as a whole and that Sugar Cubes record were like on repeat for like 3 months for me.
Nice.
But I was doing recovery, so I was just like only kind of just like sinking into things that I was really familiar with. So I wasn't really branching out very much. So I kind of just like, that's what I like to do, is kind of just like grab one record, and if I resonate with it, then I'm like, this is mine forever, and I just hold on to it.
Nice.
So. But that's where like that came from, and I think her like career is pretty amazing.
Sure.
There's a is it Army of Me? I think is the song. I like really, that's the first track I ever heard of hers, and I was just like, I've been hooked ever since.
I always thought that she sampled Donkey Kong Country for the drum part of Army of Me.
I hope so. I hope she did.
I don't think it's true, but that's what I pretend.
Have you heard the remix version that they did for Sucker Punch?
No.
Yes.
It's incredible, and she has this like really sick vocal solo that's added to it. It's a lot like Knife Party from Deftones when I can't remember her name now, but there's that wild vocal solo, and that it kind of has like its own flair, and she like, oh, it's so good. You can't find it on like Spotify or anything like that. I've only been able to find it on YouTube. But it's so good. I'll send it to you.
Nice.
That's cool. Okay, and then the other question that I have is so how exactly did you guys get invited to be on an episode of Seinfeld?
Wow.
That was the most bizarre thing. I got tagged in it yesterday while I was I was at work, and it was just like a Seinfeld episode, and pulled it up, and like, I don't know, it's bizarre, but it's really good. I don't really know Seinfeld, so I don't really know like how the characters are very well. Like I know from like media throughout the years, like how Kramer acts and whatnot.
Sure.
But I don't know. It was kind of funny, but it's the most bizarre thing I've ever.
I
didn't read
idea.
All of it.
What you guys are talking about, by the way.
So somebody did a chat GBT putting Closet Witch in like a Seinfeld episode. So it's like this, like it's like a script of like, Closet Witch And I will say, I myself was a huge Seinfeld fan, like growing up, and I still enjoy watching reruns from time to time. And I will say they really nailed it.
The response to the new record has been really impressive, like a really big deal. Like, I know you probably don't want to brag or whatever, but it made so many top lists or even #1 release of the year for so many people. And that's pretty crazy. I don't even know some of them.
Well,
Maybe you
it was
remember.
mentioned in Rolling Stone
Oh, baby.
by an editor.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's
Yeah.
fucking nuts. I don't really know what to say about it. I'm just
Right.
like, truthfully, like the one thing that comes to mind for me is it's really sick that we didn't have like a sophomore slump.
Yeah.
So like that's
For
where I'm like,
sure.
oh cool, like we did one record that people really liked as well,
Mhm.
but it wasn't like that moment of like, well, it's not, the self-titled.
Right.
And that I was kind of worried about that a little bit, but I'm glad that it found its like little own niche. And what's kind of weird is like when the album dropped is when we kind of just like pulled the plug.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's kind of naturally found its audience on its own. We
Mhm.
haven't really we haven't been playing shows. We'll promote things here and there, but if you look at the social media, it's nothing crazy.
Mhm.
So who's ever found it has found it on their own. That's
Yeah.
super fucking cool.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
And then like, I mean, yeah, like it making it, I don't know what to say. Like it's
Yeah.
surreal. Like it doesn't feel real, but it's like, it's just neat. It's neat that it like to even like get through the door, so to speak, is like so nice.
Mhm.
And then like if you're really gonna pick 10, like it was so kind of them to do that. So and I have no idea. Like that was where like a lot of the funny part is like, who is this guy? Like how do they
Right.
how they get this record? And like his list, there was one other band, the Missouri Execution Order 44. That's like a Kansas City band.
Huh.
And so I'm curious if like
Mhm.
he was at some of those shows because we've like played with them before. So I was kind of curious if like they're just, I don't know. It's just bizarre. It's wild. I'm glad that people enjoy it because it was like, it wasn't planned to be the record that it is either. It was supposed to be 3 splits. And then we
Wow.
kind of just took everything and like chunk songs, like the beginning and end to another split of those chunks of songs ended up being Mellification.
Wow.
And we were just like, okay, scrap those, put that out as like a 2-track EP of its own thing. Then we focused on everything we had left. And there's some tracks that for sure, like, if you really like fine tuned and got in there, especially after the break in the middle and when it goes back into Arlington, if you like grab a fine tooth comb, you're gonna hear like the difference of the recording sessions, especially with like Arlington and Funeral Flowers. Those were like totally different sessions that were gear was torn down and like we set up. So like one split was recorded on its own, set up, torn down, and then 2 other splits were set up and recorded at once. So those trying to blend those together was a fucking nightmare. And that's where Brad Boatwright from Audio Seeds really did a killer job of like trying to blend those tracks in with the rest. And I think now that I pointed it out, you're going to be able to notice it pretty easily. But then I think at first glance, Brad did an incredible job.
I didn't notice that at all. So
Yeah, me neither.
that's awesome.
It's really cool.
And it sort of answers one of my questions is, okay, so a lot of this comes across as maybe like a single track or at least connected. Was any of it recorded that way, or is it all recorded separate and just sort of blended over each other in between the songs?
So there were certain tracks, like I know this is really embarrassing, but I'm bad at my own song titles.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But I do know that like the track where like Frankie's on it, where there's like it's like blistering fast and there's like almost no transition whatsoever between that. I do recall being like, we're gonna record. So it's Haunting and Releasing. I'm pretty sure we recorded that as a single song.
Yeah, cool.
But I'm pretty sure everything else is one at a time. And that came from a game I used to play in an old touring band where the drummer of that band when he was driving, pretty much he and I were always up front together because they had like the buddy system, and
Yeah.
who's ever driving gets to pick the music. He
Mhm.
was a super big into Between the Buried and Me. And I like
Mhm.
I enjoy them. I think they're okay. It's
Mhm.
not like that kind of music kind of puts me to sleep a little bit. And like it's like so technical and so much that it kind of just
Mhm.
it's like it's almost like classical music. It kind of just like
Mhm.
lulls me to sleep. But they are notorious for blending their tracks together really. Like there's one in particular where it's like mid-fill and it
Wow.
goes in, and I
Yeah.
was always like really fascinated with that. But the game was, if I could find where the transition was between
Oh.
one song into another, I got to change the band. And I got really good at figuring out where they were transitioning their songs. And that's one thing Between the Barry and Me really inspired, was like, I like that flow a lot. And that was a
Mhm.
big discussion on this record because, yeah, we did do, because there's versions for sure where there's a count, like a 4 count
Right.
before, or even a single snare hit. And it was
Mhm.
a really big discussion. I definitely remember with Royce and I particular
Yeah.
being where he was like, I think tracks need to have a count and they need to be ready. And my argument at the time, and where we kind of met, was like, trust me on this and don't put in the count and make
Mhm.
it chaotic beginning to end. And the only spot you get to breathe is that middle section and the
Yeah.
final resolve. And
Right.
just see how this goes real quick. Let's put it together and listen
Mhm.
to it. And it was just, the only goal is to create that really abrasive. I think like that was the only way to do it. If you give it a rest and a breather, then you're not, like, a lot of people compare it to suffocating. And I agree. It
Mhm.
should be, that's how it is live to me. Like
Yeah.
we do counts live, but the last year and a half, we kind of cut that out. And
Mhm.
so we
Yeah.
were doing our stuff kind of how it is on the record with no counts. And it's just
Mhm.
like that energy continues to build. And I think the proper rests were put where they needed to
Mhm.
be. And I don't know, like there was a lot, like there was, I mean, even Luke kind of like, Luke Tweedy, who is
Mhm.
Flat Black, was even kind of like, well, yeah, there should be like spots to breathe and like a click. But then at the end of the day, once it was put together like that, and like what the goal of the record, I don't know if there
Mhm.
really was a goal, but it's just more like this felt like the right idea. So
Yeah.
I think that's where it was.
Well, what I really like about it is there's no way you're not going to listen to the whole thing.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like
that's cool.
there's no way you're going to just stop in the middle of it. You know what I mean? It's like,
I typically, if I listen back, I get to the end of that break. And when
Mhm.
Arlington picks up, that's normally where I'm like, okay, I'm good. And
right.
like, but that's weird, like listening to my own stuff.
Sure.
I guess like I've
Yeah.
also found it really hard to listen to. The only way I've been able to listen to it is a really lo-fi version that got uploaded to YouTube. And that's
Mhm.
the one I like the most. I think it gets like,
Oh, wow.
it's like at really low, like MP3 level, like,
Compression.
oh,
Yeah.
dude, it's really bad. And I'm like, this sounds awesome. Like, this is my favorite version of the record. So I've been listening to that one because, like, even I'm like, I don't know, like, I'm sure you guys are with your music too. You
Mhm.
hear it
Yeah.
vastly different than
Oh,
everybody
yeah.
else. And so when
Yep.
I hear, I'm like,
Yeah.
that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's
Mhm.
wrong. But then it's so interesting to see other people's reactions. So, like, when I
Mhm.
read those, I'm like, now I kind of want to hear if I hear it. So
Yeah.
there are days where I'm like, oh, hey, like this is okay. We did an okay record. And then there's
Yeah.
most days where I'm like, this is trash. Like I
Yeah.
shouldn't
Right.
even have like sent this in. Like, and then it's like really bizarre, that Chat GBT Seinfeld site.
Uh-huh.
I had to get nosy and like, so I searched us and I find all these reviews of Kiro and actually everything we've done. Kiro is the most positive, but then I find this discussion. There's a bunch of these guitar nerds, and
Oh.
they're all like discussing my riffs, and then like
Oh.
all of a sudden it went from Closet Witch versus Gridlink versus Chopin, and in my head, it's like you can't even put us anywhere near these like legendary titans
Hmm.
of bands, and like I just think of like I don't know, like how they hear that baffles me. But
Yeah.
I will say, like, it's different. What I guess I like about Grind a lot is like the different approaches. And when I hear like Gridlink and Chopin, I personally, this isn't, I don't know for a fact, but I hear a lot of overdubs, click
Mm-hmm.
tracks. Like we're playing this to a pristine,
Mm-hmm.
very clear, like we're going with a grid. And
Right.
that's a more of like a technical recording term.
Mm-hmm.
And with us, we never had a click track. It's all live recording in a room besides Molly. Every guitar, every bass, and every
Wow.
drum track was recorded at the same time for every record we've ever done. So
Yeah.
there's never going to be that super tight, unrealistic sound of a band. But I
Yeah.
think that's the flavor that we bring to the table.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's bizarre when placed next to those kind of other releases. So like that yesterday was kind of a surreal, like, oh, I wouldn't even dare put those next to each other. And it's like a whole group of people being like, yeah, their riffs compare. And it's like, I don't think so,
Wow.
but that's
Do you
fucking
hop
wild.
on there
Like,
and just say, "This is Alex," and you're all dumb? It's like,
no,
just
like
totally deflate all their
I
ideas.
wish, but no, I like a lot of time, like especially the last like 6 or 7 years, I especially have like tried to never read comments because
Mm-hmm.
like we did Hate 5-6 and that was a minefield to navigate through. So I didn't even like read any of that stuff. And it's like, I mean, we're not for everybody. So like I understand
Right.
like some people don't get what we're doing, but that was kind of what I was getting at, where it's like it's a different flair of grind and it's
Mm-hmm.
not this, but it is funny where people are like, this is trash compared to A, B, and C. And then you go check out A, B, and C, and it's like 4/4 grind. And it's like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't even, this is apples and oranges, man. Like,
Right.
why are you even putting these side by side? But it's interesting that somebody does hear it as side by side. So then you start breaking down like, what do they hear that makes us side by side? Is it
Right.
just blast beats? Is it just
Right.
the screaming? And so you
Mhm.
start break. It's very interesting to hear people's own opinion on music, and it's so subjective and it's
Yeah.
fucking insane. Where like even okay, now rolling back to Rolling Stone, where somebody whose job it is to listen to great music hears it differently than I do
Right.
too.
Mhm.
So like that's fucking insane. So it's
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
Yeah. And you know, the thing is, I've always viewed you guys kind of as almost doing like grindcore through like the filter of like punk rock or something. You know, you guys definitely have like more of a punk aesthetic, I think, when it comes to like the way you approach stuff, which
Yeah,
I think totally works for you guys.
it's hard to like put that finger on it, where like sometimes I feel that way with like having a more screamo approach to it and that
Uh-huh.
atmospheric vibe. But then
Yeah.
like I don't know, like there are a lot of bands doing that sound too. So it's hard.
Yeah.
I just like that no one's ever really put us in like one category
Yeah.
really
Yeah, you
for
guys-
real. No one said like they're a mathcore band, they're a grindcore band, they're a screamo band, or they're a
Yep.
power violence band. It's always something different whenever somebody writes a review. So once again, really interesting the subjective view
Yeah.
of this record, you know. So that's it's
Yeah.
just, and I guess like us being as the people who wrote it, there wasn't ever a like it's not like the four of us got together and like let's write something groundbreaking. All the inspiration, like I can only speak for me as my personal input into the creative process, but everything you're hearing on Kiro is just every band we've ever played with. And every band we've ever played with has this element, this inspiration. And I guess that was like one of your questions was like, what inspires you today? And I guess like I got to shout it out. One, if you say nothing inspires you, that's really silly and you should take a
Right.
step back. And then two is if everything doesn't inspire you in a negative or positive way, that's a problem too. Like you
Yeah.
need to open up and be like, there are bands that can inspire you negatively in a way of like, okay, well, I learned I didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
And then you're going to see bands that are like, oh, I love what they did here, but I want to put my own twist on it. And then we're in 2024 where, oh, this band did that. That's fucking awesome. We're going to do that. I mean,
Right.
it's just, that's how music is today.
Yeah,
And it's not,
definitely.
I don't think
Yeah.
it's stealing creativity. I just think it is what it is.
It's-
I don't know how else to say it. And especially in the AI generation. I mean, like, what are we doing now? So I mean, you can't be too mad at me for being like, yeah, we put a breakdown that's kind of similar to this. So like,
Yeah.
I don't know if it worked.
Everything comes from something. I mean, you
For
have
real.
to have inspiration. I did have one question also, because you were kind of talking about the sequencing of the album and everything, and
Uh-huh.
Erik mentioned that it kind of sounds like one big track, sort of.
Mhm.
And I kind of agree with that. But I wanted to know one of the things that stood out to me is that I noticed that there's an intro and then there's an outro in the middle of the record on Spotify. And I was wondering if there was any certain decision as to why that was made, or if that's even like, you know, if that was just like a thought that you had, like, oh, let's put the outro in the middle of the record. Because I think that on my cassette version that I have, I think the outro is actually at the end of the record, or I could be wrong.
So I have never looked this up on Spotify because the Spotify numbers stress me out. I believe this is a mistake.
Oh,
That
really?
should be, I think
Okay.
that should definitely be at the end after To the Cauldron.
Well, it actually
Wow.
works out.
That's
It actually
crazy.
works out.
I'd
It
have to
actually works out
listen to
really
it. I don't.
well.
Well, hold on. I'm gonna hit play to make sure. Is it the outro in the beginning or in the middle, or is it the outro at the end?
It's
Not
titled
sure.
outro.
It's
right
titled
in the
outro
middle,
right in the middle of the album.
song.
And I just
No,
remember.
so that is okay. So what's going on there is that is where it should be in the album on
Uh-huh.
Spotify. That is the incorrect title for what it would be.
Yep. Okay. So then I thought maybe there's like some concept involved here.
No, there is. So that's awesome to talk about now. So that's where, so in my opinion, the correct way to listen to the album would either be on cassette tape or vinyl. And what happens is at the end of side A, that's the outro and it fades into silence. So as soon as you flip over the record and hit play, you are immediately into Arlington with that like blast beat. So it's like, it's to lull you to a comfort zone and then immediately spike up your stress right back to where we were before.
Awesome.
And I think it was kind of just that, like we thought it through and we're like, it's like I don't know how to really word it. Like it was a psychological move, but I just thought when we were talking about it and we did it, that's how it should be. Like the chaos of You, Me, and Venus Decay kind of ends with that swelling. And then we have that outro of like just this ambient, like, well, that's like a track. It's like a Korean, like it's a morning song that's played in Korea, North Korea, I guess, or North or South. Sorry. Corey got the clip, but it's like that's what that like chanting choir is, and then we put all these other samples over it, but it was just kind of to lull you into comfort basically. And then once you're back grounded and you flip it over and then you go back to the most extreme point again, it's just like 0 to 100. We strictly didn't have any thought process of like streamed versions for this. It was always that physical, really, because the one thing, this was supposed to be a 10-inch that kind of became a little bit of an issue, and so it ended up being 12, but it was always going to be like, we were never concerned. Well, Corey runs tape media for us since day one, so we knew for sure it was going to be on tape and vinyl. Anything else would have just been extra. So I think like that was the only view and goal we had for it. And I guess the truth is, from like not to get all business on you, but from sales perspective, streaming services make us almost nothing compared to like actual vinyl and tape sales.
Oh yeah.
And so like that's the media I'm going to present this piece of work on. And I think if you're really checking out Chiaroscuro versus like everything we've done before this is the first album that I think was really meant to be on a physical media like that, like it to be flipped over and be prepared in that sense.
Yeah.
Nice. Alex, I was going to ask, what are the future plans? Like, are you plotting things out right now, or are you really just like, we're not even going to think about this for a little while? Or I guess, what's your plan?
Unfortunately, I'll talk about it here. There was a really, really big record release show planned at the end of November at the Roz Talks, and everybody but Dylan was going to be performing their parts. We were going to do the full Chiaroscuro with Stu, sorry, and then have like a noise set with Alex Mahaffey, and then we would play the new record that we have already written That's
Oh wow.
it. We have another album written and recorded, but Molly hasn't done vocals to. So as
Mm-hmm.
far as the future of the band, it's kind of just sitting like, obviously they have a big new life step ahead of them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to be the one to be like closet witch, closet witch, closet. Like,
Right.
so I think we're all on a mutual page of like, when it feels good, we'll come back to it. I have it all on a
Cool.
hard drive. We'll do it when we feel ready. And I think if anything, more than likely, we'd probably record that kind of in secret
Mm-hmm.
and then just drop. I'd imagine we drop the record and then be like, we're doing shit again.
Right.
But I just don't know as far as like longevity, timeline. There has been a date was kind of thrown out, but I'm at the same time being like, a lot of things can change
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not clinging to that date personally. And so I've kind of shifted gears more towards like my musical education.
Mm-hmm.
I've started to take courses for audio engineering,
Oh,
and
cool.
I've already recorded the record, but I'd like to mix and master it proper. Well, I'd mix it and then have somebody else master it, but I'd like to do that stuff properly.
Mm-hmm.
So I think when all that went down, that's where I kind of like pivoted from like playing live music to like, I'm now going to focus on this. I've had a couple offers to join some other things since then, but I just kind of decided that truthfully, it's nice to have my weekends to myself. It's nice to, when Closet Witch is Closet Witch, that's like what I do. It's like another full-time job. I know it's a garage band to most people, but like there's so many moving pieces to get, like even the record coming out was like 6 months of prep work, like almost a year actually, of like even getting that produced and who to work with. And like that honestly was kind of a nightmare to trying even getting that pedal done. It like a lot of things layered up. So it was just like nice. As soon as like November 3rd happened, I finally got to like just, and I hate to use the terminology of like, I just got to pull the plug and I finally got to breathe for like the first time in like 10 years. And I've kind of embraced it in a way. Like, I just don't want to be the person like Royce has a kid too. And like, I'm the only one now who doesn't have kids and I don't know what that's like. So I'm just gonna do this for the time being. And if we do meet up and get things going again, I'll be just as ecstatic. But I think the rest is due. I think even like after chemo, I was ready to do it. We did about a year and a half of shows, but I'm not gonna lie, it beat the shit out of me. I was I lost all the strength I used to have. So like gaining all that back. So now it's nice to like, I work out during the week now, which is like, if you guys know me, that's not a thing I'd ever done. So like now, like my life, I get to kind of like focus on things that are a little bit for me right now.
Sure.
And so like the education with everything too, I think it's just like a good timing. And then everybody's like just doing their own thing. And I think after writing all these records too, it'll be nice to like let that, you know, rest and grow the creative bubble and like, you know, closet. I'm excited to do more. We already talked about doing another EP. So like everybody's still talking about writing and moving forward. And like, I mean, we haven't played shows, but like we're still in all of our group chats and like still like, you know, I've seen like we hang out. The person I probably haven't seen, which bums me out, is I haven't seen Royce in a while, but like he works a ton and like we just haven't really synced up. But I did get to like hang out with Molly and Corey. We went and saw a movie together the other day, and that was so nice to see them.
Closet Witch is the only record that we both had on our top 2000 or 2023
thanks,
list.
Guys.
Yeah,
That's true. And we didn't discuss it at all.
No, yeah, I think.
And when we did that episode, I was like, I can't believe there's no crossover.
Yeah,
we don't enjoy any of the same music at all.
That was bizarre because
Except
the year before
Closet Witch.
Because the year before,
yeah,
like almost every pick was a crossover.
Yeah,
nice.
We've grown away from each other. We've grown apart.
It's so sad.
It's gonna turn mean someday. Pretty soon, it's gonna be like, Dan, you have the worst taste in music.
Oh my god, I hope not.
We just fight. I think that'll be a nice turn.
I think that would be really funny if we like started every episode in 2024, with the exception of this one, off like that. It's like,
Yeah.
Erik, what are you listening to? Sounds like crap.
Yeah. What bullshit did you bring to the episode?
Oh, geez, Erik.
Yeah.
Can I roll my eyes harder at your recommendation?
That'd be amazing. At first, I hated this idea, but now you sold me on it. I love it now. I love Erik, Dan hating each other. I don't mean that.
Yeah, but it'll be
if you're into pretentious, unlistenable bullshit, check out Erik's pick this week.
I love it.
And if you're into easy listening pop punk garbage.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Alex, for being on.
This is a blast. I came in being like, I'm going to try and get this off topic as much as possible. So I barely had to try. So
nailed it. Tracks only exist to go off of. I mean,
But yeah, thank you very much for coming on, Alex. Again, man, you were the first guest, so you're the first guest to be on a second time.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Go out and check Clausewitz if you have not.
Do you want to say bye with us, Alex?
Yeah, sure. That'd be great.
All right. Well, thanks again for being on, and thank you for listening.
Thanks for having me.
All the stuff we usually say, who cares? Okay. Bye.
Bye. All right, see y'all later.
Awesome.
Have
Talk
a
to
good
you
one.
later.
Thanks again, guys.
Yeah, thank
Great
you.
talking with you.
You too. Bye.